And we're going to go into it today. And I ask all you brothers and sisters, as we get closer to the end, as the Most High begin to deliver our people out of this bondage, out of this hard case we're in. I'm going to ask brothers and sisters, as this year go on, going into this new year, that we be more patient with each other, more loving with each other, more caring, and more appreciative, not to each other, not just to each other, but to the Most High for what He's bestowed upon us. Sometimes we can take this for granted. Sometimes we look at our life and think, woe is me, it's the worst thing on earth, not realizing that we're blessed. We're very blessed. And sometimes we're so caught up into what's wrong. There's not enough time to reflect on what the Most High has done for us. We need to appreciate those close to us, our family. We need to appreciate our children, our husbands, our wives. We need to appreciate each other, not knowing, brothers and sisters, what tomorrow holds. We have today. So what I want to go into is the plot. The plot against the children of Israel in the book of Esther, which led to a memorial called Purim, the same memorial we are all celebrating right now. It's eerily similar. A few things I want to point out so that you can relate to what's going on. Folks, there was a census. Haman, an Edomite, got in full power amongst the Persian consul. And he felt offended at a banquet one day where all of the wise counsels and the Chaldeans and the king's council all bowed in respect to the God of the Persians. But our prophet Mordecai, being obedient to the law, statutes, and commandments of our God, said, listen, I respect the king, but I bow to no God outside of the God of Israel. So Esau became infuriated and said, "What? Look, this guy disrespected you in public." Just give you all the gist of it for those who, haven't read the story. What makes these people better than us? How dare they respect the government of Persia and not bow to the command of the king and worship the God who have empowered the Persians? So here it is. He stirred and instigated dissension between the government, who had no issue with us, and the king. So what happens? He says, I'll take care of this problem. Let's make a census and count every one of the provinces here in Persia, so we'll know exactly how many Israelites reside in this area. You give me the money, we'll pay mercenaries to take all those out who will not bow to the power of the king. Sounds eerily familiar. The census. Hiring not only Gentile mercenaries, but looking to hire mercenaries even amongst our own people to administer the sword. Today, it's the syringe. The Most High had given us some understanding a long time ago that Jacob's trouble would come upon us. He showed us a long time ago. Brothers and sisters, we're in Jacob's trouble. We have brothers and sisters who don't know any better, dropping like flies right now, confused for what all this is. But one thing I do thank the Most High for is His truth, His word, His law. And you know what? I thank the Most High for this church. because we needed each other through this time when the whole earth was confused. And I look up and I look up and all the people who listen, and that's 99.99% are as healthy as they were before they began the COVID research. I also want to go into, keep in mind as we get closer to the deliverance, to our deliverance, that spirits will heighten. That's why it talks about in the book of Purim, the attack of the specters and cherubims, which means wherever your weak spot is, I don't care if we have everything right in every other area, this is where the demon will wait. We can tick all the boxes, but it's that one area that we ignore or don't pay attention to will be our spiritual Achilles heel. And every one of us has one. A button that can be pushed. Where all of a sudden, everything we work for comes to nothing. Based on one action. One reaction. It can send our whole lives tipsy-turvy, and I'm going to talk about that right after I go into the story. How it takes one decision that'll take your whole life into a different trajectory. You'll look and say and ask, how did I get here? And I'm going to tell you how sinister this demon is going into the time of what the Bible calls the hour of temptation. The demon is so sinister. When you react and act off of this demon, it won't allow you to reflect concerning your part in it. It'll have you far out somewhere, almost by yourself, blaming someone else for your current status, your current place. It'll have it where you don't even realize your hand was in it. And it becomes so darkened. You'll start to believe, I'm here because of someone else. I've been cast off. Whatever the case is, that's how sinister this demon is. Where to have you roaming like they what? A stray bull, straying alone, mad at the world. So it's really time that we understand what self-reflection is and say, you know what? Here's the area I can be better for the Most High as His child. This is where I can be better as His child. Not, you have to do something for me to be better. Not hoping or looking for someone to do something, then you'll be better. No. And I can't be that way. I can't be, well, once you this way, I'll be that way. We have to really examine ourselves because, folks, the one world order in one mind is upon us. Y'all don't even realize it, folks, what's going on in the earth right now. They're in one mind all together. And we're going to be breaking down that whole Babylonian mindset from ancient Babylon. We're going to be breaking it down, folks, what that mindset was. Y'all going to have that very soon. Very soon. It's called the hive mind. Controlled by a matriarchy spirit, the spirit of Asher. And they've been perpetrating and running the whole earth on this since the beginning, unbeknownst to us. But now they've gotten the whole world acclimated under it and have emboldened themselves to the degree in which they feel now it's safe to come after God's people. Let me tell you something, man. We're going to go in today. The hive mind is what they've actually accomplished. It's the same mindset that was back in Babylon. And they slowly acclimated us into it. And you would have thought the church, with all we went through, and I'm speaking in particular, the Christian church, the black church, the only bastion of spirituality left within this earth, came through that belief in faith that was developed a whole new way of worshiping here in America. And it was the belief in Christ and this Bible that got us through. And you would have thought that we would have held on in full opposition against what's going on right now. But we allowed the evangelists, the Jesuits, and all of them to come through and break that bond that we had with God in slavery. We weren't free in slavery, but you know what? We were freer than that. Families stayed together. Families prayed together. If they picked cotton all day, they was picking cotton together. Then we grew and evolved into something better. We thought. The Jesuits came with a totally destructive doctrine. Faith healing, prosperity, totally lost what the Most High gave us. That spirit that had us go from the 1600s all the way to the civil rights movement unscathed, stronger than ever spiritual with family together. So him getting us through wasn't enough. We needed more. We needed prosperity. And say, okay, since they get prosperity, okay, maybe we can try something else. Satan and his cohorts. Maybe we can try something else. They let this go through. A new doctrine. Why don't we now put up some women preachers? Let's put up some women preachers and see how that goes. Let's see if there'll be any resistance against what brought them through slavery. A strong patriarchy and a belief in this book. The strength of men that led to the civil rights movement. That was a spiritual movement. The only reason that the government had to acquiesce to some degree is because what can you do? What can you do against the people who believe? There's nothing to threaten them with. You can't threaten them with death. The one they believed in died, and look how great they are. We can't threaten them with death. Let's give them a seat at Satan's table. Women preachers started coming through. They said, you know what? This is kind of working. There's not much pushback right now. What's next? I know what's next. You know that, the letter people. Let's give them positions on boards and positions over full families. Put them over the choir in a leader position over family. And we sit back and let it happen. We sit back. We allow them to compare the plight we went through in slavery. Even the Indians and the Indians and the 10 tribes, what they suffered under the conquistadors. We allowed them to compare our plight with a sexual decision. And put what we went through on the same level as their sexual preference. Who did that? The church did that. We allowed it with that thou cannot judge mentality. And here we are. Because we allowed all that to happen, they said, okay, let's take the Bible out of the schools. They don't need the Bible no more. That's a total conflict. There should be separation between church and state. And you know what? Church-going people, church-going folks, we just allow them to make it where our children couldn't even pray in school. We go to work having a hard day. At least we understood that our baby fell to their knees and prayed over their lunch. Our God will look over. And we sat back, believers in the Bible, and said nothing. I get a text today. The text today said, you need to see what they're about to do in Orange County, Florida. What's going on in Orange County, Florida? While they telling you some pandemic and people are, and all this crap, aiming all this crap towards us, using the simple amongst our people to push it, they pushing their agendas right up under us. A text today. What was the text? Orange County, Florida have approved that's right, the Church of Satan can now give out literature to grade school children. We sat back and allowed it all to happen and didn't think at the very end Satan wasn't going to jump out from behind and say, aha, it was me the whole time. There was no resistance from our leaders. Now Satan had come from behind the wall. And he's coming right. If y'all don't think that this is something spiritual, with them aiming this campaign at our people the way they're doing, you're not looking. This is a spiritual sacrifice to Satan. Front and center. But you know what? I'm going to show you how all is at once. The Most High doesn't need a multitude. He just needs a remnant. Just a few people who would stand up, fast, pray, and fight righteously against the unrighteous. He don't need too many people. And this is why, again, hey, as far as I'm concerned, we're enough. I thank the Most High for the gathering of Christ Church. And guess what? We can pick it up from where our forefathers left off before the church was destroyed. Now let's go in. Let's deal with this plot because they're plotting as we speak. Elder Lawyer, let's go to Esther, the book of Esther, the 3rd chapter. Let me get it here. Yes, sir. The book of Esther, follow me here. The 3rd chapter. We're going to do the 3rd, and we're going all the way to the 9th. We're going to skip through it for you all. All right? One moment. And then after this, I heard there's the children put together a little production. So what we're going to do is we're going to eat while the children are dealing with the production. So they're going to entertain us as we dine. A 2-for-1 deal. Right? Hold on. You know, I worked that out after not eating. I'm like, listen. Hey, I can tell you right now, a lot of plays and all, but you know how we used to do it back in Israel. We sit back and we celebrate. We got like wine going and eating it, and the people celebrating. here? I'm like, yeah. You know that was us. We're going to have a good time tonight. And let's go to Esther, the 3rd chapter. Let's read it. Come on.
Yes, sir. The book of Esther, chapter 3, verse 1. After these things, the king Ahasuerus provoked Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite.
Agagite. He was Agagite. He was an Amalek from King Agag. He was from the line of the Amalekites, an Edomite. Come on.
And advanced him, and set a seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence.
So here it is. Mordecai didn't give any respect to Esau's position. Come on.
Verse 3. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, they told Haman to see whether Mordecai or Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew.
He told them he was an Israelite from Judea. Okay, read.
Verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he sought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had shown him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai.
Now this is a political move. This is a government plan, plot by Esau that we're reading here. Read.
Verse 7. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast the pur, that is the lot, before Haman, from day to day, from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. And Haman said unto the king Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among all the people of the provinces of thy kingdom.
There's a people who are scattered abroad in your kingdom. Now, when you go to Deuteronomy 28 and 64, it talks about the Israelites with disobedience would lose their land and be scattered amongst all nations, like us, slaves. So here it is. Now, did our people offend Haman? Did he get it right? No. That was one man who said, well, no, I'm not going out like that. But because of this, they realized, and he realized, that if he will not bow, how can I get the rest of them to? If we don't break the belief system, the religion of these Jews, how can we actually rule over them? Okay? If we don't set the religious parameters, then at any time they can go to this God and fight against us, being that their God is stronger than our God. So what happens here? So here it is. There's innocent people who have no idea what's going on here. That this God is planning to kill men, women, and children. Read.
Verse 8. And Haman said unto the king Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people.
Their laws are diverse from our laws. Let me tell you, it gets under people's craw when you tell them, nah, I don't eat that. No, I don't celebrate that. Now you would think that they would live in a country where there's freedom of religion. But you don't have the right to exercise your religion like they do. Man, you get right up under their crawl when you say that. What comes to their mind? You think you better than us? Well, no. What, you Muslim or something? No. I'm an Israelite. I'm a Jew. And there's laws. There's things that are kosher to eat and things that are unkosher. I'm not here to offend you. I'm not telling you that you can consume whatever you like. That's your temple. But that gets under their skin because everyone believes that they're doing it right. Every individual believes that what they're doing is better than everyone else. And if I'm not doing it, something must be wrong with them. Something must be wrong with you. I mean, it can't be wrong with me. So instead of changing or inquiring to why you have chosen to have discipline, because that's what it is. It's a discipline, folks. I mean, I'm going to tell you, even when I first got the truth or whatever the case is, I'm going to tell you right now, I would still, for about a year, I would look at some crispy pork bacon, knowing that that's all the bacon I knew. And I knew what that bacon would do. You put that thing on a burger and that thing was right. So for a year, even when I got the truth, I still would check out that crispy bacon. So don't tell me. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm coming out, mom. Yeah, I got my meat on. Like, yeah, what you got cracking over there? You don't eat pork no more. Damn. She's looking over the plate. I'm like, yeah, the Most High gonna kill everybody. And I rolled out. But I'm gonna tell you right now, that bacon looked good, and it took discipline. And this is what they don't like, because I knew what my mother was doing. She would wait till I come over, and she would make the delicacy that she knew I grew up loving. And she did it on purpose. And it took discipline. And that's what they don't like. Because suppose you begin to aim that discipline righteously in an attempt to help your own people. They didn't want no discipline. So this is what Haman was dealing with. I don't have a problem with this replacing this guy. We need to find everyone he's related to. Come on.
There's a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among all the people in the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people.
Come on.
Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries.
Look at that. Paying an army to come against our people. For what? Not that we're plotting to come against anyone. Not that we're looking to do something wrong against the Persians or Esau. Just because we serve the God of Israel. Just because. Just because. And I'm going to tell you, like I said, it's no coincidence that right after they had that tally, that chart last year on anti-Semitism in the black church, and how even black people in the church believe that they are from the church. Let me tell you, anti-Semitism to them is black people saying they're Israelites. Straight out. That's anti-Semitism. You're not supposed to stake claim to who you are religiously according to the book. They take that as your anti-him. And since that chart came out last year, we were talking about it, I'm like, man, they're going to come after these churches. And then you look up, and all of a sudden, Wuhan, China. From Wuhan, China, to Harlem, New York, to North Philadelphia, to Chicago, to Compton. All of a sudden, churches all over the earth, with our people having a 70% church going rate, doors closed. Because we're not talking about what we used to talk about in the churches. And if they can't use it for their political purposes, the doors are shut. And I'm going to tell you, with the way they're administering this poison to these people, let me tell you, there's no way they can think that the church is going to come back after this. This is over. They're putting the church folk down. Right there off of Lehigh Avenue, 22nd and Lehigh. They had Patti LaBelle and all these others with this black female doctor, bringing all these old folks in lined up, all churchgoers, to get their jabs. And I'm looking at it. It's over. The church is over, and guess what happened? The black church is over. And it's the rise of Satanism. That's where we are. The rise of Satanism. Read on.
Verse 10. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the Jews' enemy.
The Jews' enemy. Now let's go over to the 4th chapter.
Chapter 4, verse 1.
Matter of fact, yeah. I need you to go to the 14th verse about the province.
Yes, sir.
Go to 3 and 14, read it.
Esther chapter 3, verse 14. The copy of the writings.
Start at 13.
Yes, sir, 13. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women.
Little children and women.
In one day, even upon the 30th day of the 12th month, or 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
Now look at that. Now back then they didn't have NBC, ABC, CNN. But they put posts up to pay mercenaries who would kill our people. Now it's advanced. Through psychology, they can now put out APBs to have you fall on your own sword. See? This is what they're doing. Back then they were putting up posts and people was reading them. But now, the news. Why black people are so hesitant? Here's a black doctor who's championing in the run. She's right before us on Channel 6 News. And I've never heard blackity black so much in my life since CB4. Blackity black. Now everyone's black. The black doctor, the black. I'm like, so where is the white doctor? What does the white doctor say? What about the Chinese doctor? Or the Chinese nurse? You see, yeah, we got a black doctor here, and she has a campaign to make sure we do this thing right, and we make sure this campaign, and we roll this out. It's the same thing, folks. And I pray because I love some Patti LaBelle. She's one of the more unique singers of our time. But I pray, because I know she don't know no better being out there. We already lost Mary Wilson the other day. And she was fine the other day on New Year's Eve saying, well, this COVID thing, oh my God, And she was vibrant, strong, and everything. And then a couple of weeks later, gone. So I pray that the Most High, make sure that Patty stay healed. Okay? That she overcome this onslaught. All of our people, we pray. This is not a good time to have an I told you so moment. It's not even about that. It's a good time to say, no. They're aiming this at our people. Come on. Just like Haman. Come on.
Yes, sir. Verse 14. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hasted by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. Chapter 4, verse 1.
Come on.
When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud voice and a bitter cry. And came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth.
Come on.
And in every province whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes.
Look at that. Once the news got out, our people nervous, confused, praying to the Most High, fasting, a government campaign to kill the children of Israel, who are doing nothing but just trying to live our lives, take care of our families, and serve the living God. So Mordecai, the prophet, who was known at that time, rent his clothes in sorrow for the mourning that was upon all of us. Innocent people are going to die based on this one man taking a stand for the Almighty. The guilt was on him. He took a stand. He didn't have to take a stand. He took a stand, and now he's saying, what? Now my people die? And he rent his clothes up in guilt. The people are nervous now. The armies are paid to come against us. But the Most High has a plan. He always does. The Most High always have a plan. And this is what I want to highlight this night. He has a plan for all of us. Esau has his plan just like him. But our God has a better plan. Finish reading.
Yes, sir. Verse 4. So Esther's maid and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she rent her raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend unto her, or upon her, and gave her a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was, and why it was. So Hathach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate.
Come on.
And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also he gave the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make requests before him for her people.
But the Most High had a relative, Esther, in the house. Beautiful sister. Had her in the house for his purpose. Finish reading.
Verse 9. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake unto Hathach, and gave her commandment unto Mordecai. And all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whatsoever whether man or woman shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called there, is one law of his to put him to death.
Come on.
Except such to whom the king shall hold out golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come unto the king these 30 days.
Come on.
And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews.
He told her, oh, you think you're safe because you're living in the king's house? If they're going to kill our people out here, know that they're going to kill our people in there. And that goes for the same people who are out doing the government's bid in all of this. They think they open up their churches and open up their buildings that they'll get a pass. He's like, no. If they're after the Jews, guess what, Sister Esther? You're numbered with us. Come on.
Verse 14. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, and who knoweth whether thou art come to the king for such a time as this?
He says, maybe the Most High have you in this position for a time such as this. Go to the 5th chapter.
Chapter 5, verse 1.
Read.
Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house, and the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house.
Come on.
And it was so that when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand.
He says, come on. You know she put on the dew of all dews. You know, y'all women, they act like they don't know what they be doing. You know, the sisters, they got the girl together, yeah, took and tightened that thing up, and sitting there, no stomach, sitting there, and ready. Can't even breathe almost coming up in that place. And the king is like, well, okay now. Hey, let her through. You know, she got her hair together, probably throw some rose petals up in the water, and got out the water, got her head did. And I'm going to tell you, listen, y'all know what it is. I'm going to tell you, I got some stories. Even back in North Philly, I know people, because my sister used to do it. I'm telling business now. She would get totally did up. And that's when Jordache jeans was out. Totally did up just to go to the corner store. Now you act like and they act like they're going someplace. But there's somebody they know they want, to see them. Y'all know sisters have no place to go and to be in a supermarket. Look like they're going to a club. This is what we've been. Y'all know. I'm telling on y'all. Right? But here it is. Sister Esther. She looks immaculate. The king says, come on up. Let's go.
Verse 3. Then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther?
Go on.
What is it that thy request? It shall be even given thee to half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, if it seem good unto the king, that the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him.
Here you go. You come with me. Come on.
Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared.
Come on.
And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is it thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed.
Come on.
Then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, if I found favor in the sight of the king, if it have pleased the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, that the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said.
Come on.
Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, for he was full of indignation against Mordecai.
All right.
Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes of the servants of the king. Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she prepared but myself.
Come on.
And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king.
Read.
Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then said Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, let gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon.
So here it is. He said, you know what? This Mordecai guy, I loathe him. Let me make gallows to kill the Most High's prophet. Not realizing that our sister Esther has set she set a trap. Let's read 6.
Chapter 6, verse 1. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the books of the records of the chronicles that they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him.
Come on.
And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman threw a thought in his heart, to whom the king delight to do honor more than myself. And Haman answered the king, well, the man whom the king delighted to honor, let royal apparel be brought, which the king used to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the royal crown which is set upon his head. And let his apparel and his horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal, whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim him before him. Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighted to honor.
Read.
Then the king said to Haman, make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do so even to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fall of all that thou hast spoken.
Come on.
Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city.
Now look at that. Mordecai was almost left for dead, but now, look, he's coming in the city with what? Royal apparel. That's the children of Israel there. Come on.
It says, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning, and having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said the wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews,
if he be of the seed of the Jews, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, go on,
before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains, and hasted to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
7th chapter, let's go.
Chapter 7, verse 1. So the king Haman came to the banquet, or king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther?
What would you like me to do, my wife? What? Man, you know Haman is doing one of these numbers. Read it again.
It says here, verse 2, and the king said unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed even to the half of the kingdom.
Come on.
Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, and I and my people to be destroyed.
He says, we are sold for bondage, right? Read.
We are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish.
Come on.
But if we have been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I have held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage.
Come on.
Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he?
Who is he? Read.
And where is he that durst presume in the heart to do so?
Because she's included. He's not just planning to kill Mordecai. He's planning to kill all the Jews. He says, who's coming at my woman? What's going to happen next?
Verse 6, and Esther said, the adversary and the enemy is this wicked Haman.
Read.
Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen.
Yeah. Come on.
And the king ariseth from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen. For he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king.
Exactly. It's the same way today, brothers and sisters. They're conniving, manipulating. They're doing everything they can to come against and to destroy our people. Deceitfully through subtlety. But the Most High is going to turn it back on. Let's read it.
Verse number 7. And the king, back verse 8.
8, yeah.
Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine.
Come on.
And Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then the king said, will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai,
come on,
who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon.
Hang Haman thereon. Right? So the same noose they were going to use for us, the Most High purpose for them. As is today. Because one thing I'm seeing, and you know what, and I really have to, thank the Most High for this. There's more of our people skeptical in this whole campaign than I thought would be. We have a lot of skeptics who are saying, well, no, since y'all saying that blacks should get it first, we're just going to sit back and see the results of you people getting it first. And then we'll make it. We're not saying no, but we want to see the fallout. So we're not saying no, but I'm going to sit on the fence with this for a second, and see how this thing shake out for your people. Right? Come on, let's go.
Verse 10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified.
Then was the king's wrath, what?
pacified.
Pacified. So through this, the Most High did what? He turned the conspiracy on their own heads. So you can conspire against God's people all you want. But the Most High have a plan. We just have to stay obedient. Like Mordecai was. Like Esther was. Obedient to our God. Until he bring forth his plan. Okay? Right now there's a death angel over our people. Throughout the four corners of the earth, they're aiming this thing towards us. They're stopping people from traveling. They don't want people to travel and all that. Why? Because for the first time in years, it's our people traveling. I'm going to tell you right now, so they're saying stop everything for a rendition. For a rendition. But they have a plan. They're dealing with their plan and executing it on the week. But I believe that the Most High is going to turn this on their own head. Okay? I believe this whole home and the foundations and all these other people, because usually they do things and think they can keep it insulated within a community. But that's an impossibility. What's going to happen is their families who are actually pushing this are going to fall in number to this. That's what's going to happen. The Most High, he does this over and over again when you read the scriptures. Pharaoh has one plan. And now he wake up his son, his firstborn, his heir, is dead right before him. So you plot on the children of Israel, and guess what? It'll be your plan or your decree turned back on you. Mordecai had a petition for our people to die. Mordecai also had the gallows ready for the prophets to hang. and guess it was Haman and his sons who were hanged on the gallows he made, that he decreed to be set for the prophet. It was as if he sealed his own judgment. And the Most High is going to do the same thing in this earth today. This is why I ask you all to fast with us, to pray with us, so that the Most High can turn this on the enemies. Our people, folks, our people have suffered enough. Our families are torn apart. We're suffering from all types of diseases. Our children they got our children on the Ritalin and all this other stuff. You would have thought they would have given us a respite. You would have thought that they would have backed off us a little bit. Coming down on the brothers, coming down on the sisters, oppressing us on these corporate jobs. Oppressing us every place we go. And you would think they would give us rest. But the Most High is going to turn it on them like he did during the time of the Persians. Let's get the 9th chapter real quick, everyone. Matter of fact, let's read the 8th verse. Come on through. Yeah, the 8th chapter. Let's go.
Chapter 8, verse 1. On that day, the king Ahasuerus gave the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told him, or had told what he was unto her.
Come on.
And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman.
Gave him the position, the prophet. Read. For serving God and not bowing to Satan. Read.
And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, If it please the king, and I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces.
Come on.
For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred?
Come on.
Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring, for the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is the month Sivan, and on the 23rd day thereof, and it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and to the deputies and rulers of the provinces which are from India.
Now look at that. Our people were scattered in India, come on.
Unto Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
In 127 provinces. Unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people of their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language.
And these people who are in Ethiopia weren't Cushites, they're Israelites. Now, let's go to the 9th chapter.
Chapter 9, verse 1. Now in the 12th month, that is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, and the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. And no man could withstand them, for fear of them fell upon our people. And all the rulers of the provinces and the lieutenants and the deputies and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces, for this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them.
Come on.
And in Shushan the palace the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Asaphtha, and Poratha, and Daliah, and Aradatha, and Pramashta, and Arasai, and Aradai, and Bajezatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of the Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand.
Now I need you to go right down to the finishing up here. Let's go to the 20th verse. Matter of fact, let's start at the 18th verse. The 17th verse.
Yes, sir, verse 17. On the 13th day of the month Adar, on the 14th day of the same,
which we are read.
And made it a day of feasting and
gladness. A day of what?
A day of feasting and gladness.
A day of feasting and gladness. For what? The Most High doing what? Taking vengeance on the enemies who plotted against the children of Israel. And that's what we're here for today, this evening. The 14th day when the sun came down, to feast as a memorial, to remember the plan of the Most High that toppled Esau's plan. Now, let me say this real quick. You notice every high holy day of the Most High is overlooked and overshadowed by another holiday in its same proximity on purpose. When we should be giving gifts and remembering our people being saved by Esau's plot, they got people giving gifts one to another on Valentine's Day. Almost in the same week. They have done this with all the holidays of Satan. And if you know the story of St. Valentine, this demon was running around sacrificing, ripping the hearts out of the women he loved. And that's how they got the whole idea. Or if he got jealous of a man, of a woman who had a man, he would take the heart out of the man and give it to his wife. Give it to his woman. So in the same proximity as a great holy day of giving gifts, right? They have Valentine. Even during the time of Passover, the same time we should be dealing with Passover, they have what? Easter. This is the real time if you're going to give gifts to your children, that you should give gifts because you're able to do two things at one time. Not only show them you love them, but also give them back the traditions lost of the children of Israel and give them a reason to why we're giving gifts. Well, why am I getting gifts, mommy and daddy? No, you're getting gifts because it's a memorial that the Most High implemented for Purim when a sister, an Israelite sister, stood in courage to protect her family. And her and Mordecai should be remembered for this. Now you have a reason for what? The season. This is why they wanted to celebrate Christmas, because they knew we were giving gifts, not realizing, but what we didn't realize, we were all caught up in it because of this tradition. So now we can give gifts for a reason and tell our children, well, yeah, this is why. They plotted against us, and the God of Israel saved us from the hand of our enemies. Right? Now, let me get one other thing I said I want to go into, and then we can feast. Let's go to James 1:3-1. In Romans, the 7th chapter, because I was going to talk about that spirit that's within all of us, is the sin of Adam. The sin that we have to overcome in our time or in the day of temptation. And you know what that is? That's the man or the spirit of individualism that we fight against. The selfishness that came with the sin of Adam and Eve, in which we all struggle with. And I wanted to talk about that particular spirit so that we're mindful of it this year to overcome and not be brought down through the spirit of temptation. Two things I want to talk about is the body, the member, which is our body, and the second, we're going to end it with the tongue. Right? Let's go to Romans 7. This is words to the wise, wisdom to take with us for this year, going into the Passover. This way we're not going into the Passover with grudges. We're going to go into this Passover this year light. No burdens, no guilt, no anger, no selfishness. Let's go to Romans 7, Elder Lawyer. And let's start at, if we may, let's start at the 7th verse. Romans 7:7, let's go.
Romans chapter 7, verse 7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin?
Is the law sin?
God forbid.
No.
Nay, I had not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust except the law had said, thou shalt not covet.
So he says, well, okay, the law of Moses isn't bad. I wouldn't know sin if the law didn't teach me what sin looks like. So I'm not saying that the law of Moses is wrong, but there's a law in man that's wrong. And this is where the Christians get it confused when it talks about the law that was made in us through the sin of our mother and father and mother Adam and Eve. another law became a part of our spiritual makeup. And with this law, we battle within ourselves and our minds continually. The tough thing about this is that evil law that takes us down every time is winning. You're going to have struggles, but you can't have it where this law takes precedent. And this is what Paul was talking about. You have to realize when you're getting angry, you're getting mad, you're getting all that, that's something else working against you. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're right or wrong. It usually stirs up when you're right. Let's read it real quick.
Verse 8. But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, brought in me all manner of concupiscence.
All manner of concupiscence. That's alternate thoughts. Read.
For without the law, sin was dead. For I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. And the commandment...
It says, when the law came, sin revived, and what?
And I died.
You shall surely die. Read.
Verse 10. And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me.
And by it slew me. So even when you're doing right or want to do right, there's something working to destroy you. And you can come in minute, small decisions, small discussions, minute, even arguments. But really, there's something else working to slay you. And the tough thing about it is, when we're in that moment, we feel it, but instead of shutting down, react to it. You feel it because it's rising you up. That's not us. It's something working for a provocation. And usually it leads to what? An altercation. And altercations lead to what? Death. How many of us that we know we're buried in our communities if we understood this one thing that works in us? And how to actually put that thing at bay when it arises, because it takes over. And when it's alive, it will destroy everything and go back so that you don't recognize its presence. It's in all of us. And this is that same spirit that works to slay us regularly. I need y'all to understand this. I'm going to show you where I'm going. Read.
Verse 12. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good.
The law of Moses is good. Read.
Was then that which is good made death unto me? God forbid. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me, by that which is good, the sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin.
Read it again.
For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin.
Sold under sin. So we know what the law is, but we'll find ourselves struggling against it, or making it excuses of why not to actually follow it. And that's on every level. The law of Moses, and in particular, it's important in relationships with your friends, with your family, with your husbands, with your wives. There's laws that we all have one amongst each other that sin is looking to do what? Sin is looking to break those laws. Now listen to what I'm showing. Read.
Verse number 15.
Come on.
For that which I do, I allow not.
Paul says, for that which I do, I allow not. Read.
For what I would, that I do not.
the things I want to do, I find myself not doing it. Read.
But what I hate, that I do.
I always find myself back doing at the same place what I know is wrong. Okay? I know what's right or wrong. And I know that if normally one would choose right. So this is something else in me choosing that I must get under subjection. It's thoughts. It's insatiable thoughts to do what? To fulfill the appetite of our senses. Let's go there real quick. Come on.
Verse 17. Now then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me.
But sin that dwelleth in me, read.
For I know that in me, that is in my flesh,
dwelleth
no good thing.
Read that again.
For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing.
That's a beginning point into winning against this spirit. It's when we think we're something. It's when we think, well, I'm entitled to this. Or how dare you do this? Or how dare you say this? When in us, read that again, Paul knew, read.
For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing.
No good thing. Read.
For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not.
I know what to do, but when I'm faced with this same challenge to overcome, I find myself in this particular area failing. And I wonder why it feels like time is going by, but yet I'm still walking and coming and going into the same circle, looking for a different outcome. When you're faced with that challenge, most I say, I know they're gonna jump this hurdle this time. And as soon as you get there again, boom, go backward. Okay, another 5 years you'll be here again. It's that same battle, not realizing it's not everyone else. The battle is us overcoming ourselves. That's the battle. It's easy to point to someone else of why, I'm upset. Or why things, because it definitely can't be me. It definitely can't be me, I'm good. It's everyone else. But when everyone recognizes there's nothing good in us because what we were born into came through sin and disobedience. And that good person that we know and we celebrate, yeah, that person exists. But you have to realize that person exists with that other thing too. And the difference between you and that other thing is battling against you every day. You're just trying to chill. The other thing is working more than we're working against it. It never stops working. Read.
Verse 19. For the good that I would do, I do not. But the evil which I would not, that I do.
Come on, that means I keep on doing the same thing. This is just the way I am. It's because, this is the way I am. I was always like this. You got to accept me the way I am. Everyone else know how I am, and they know how I want to have to adjust to what's wrong. You shouldn't have to adjust to me being wrong, and I shouldn't have to adjust to your wrong. We should be correcting each other, knowing that there's nothing good lieth in us. Read.
Verse 20. Now if I do that, I would not. It is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me.
Come on.
I find in a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me.
So now he's saying, I ain't doing anything wrong. But when I do good, what we do is when we do good and we know we're right with the Most High, we just celebrate it and get comfortable. Not Paul. Because sin is still chilling and waiting. So Paul says, even when I do good and I'm in a good place with the Most High, I'm still aware of him. He's still present. How do I know he's present? Because I had to choose to do what was right. So if there was a choice, sin was there. It still exists. And it's not going anywhere until the change. Until we no longer have access to these temples. It's not going anywhere. So when we begin to know ourselves and be honest with ourselves, it's hard for us to, to show others our black spots or whatever the case is. But when we look at ourselves, we're like, you know what? It's okay to say, you know what? I'm not all that. Christ is all that. He's all that. He's the spirit that makes me right. It's about him. It's a humbling spirit. It's that humbling spirit that we have to cleave to fight this spirit of evil. Finish reading.
Verse number 21.
Come on.
I find in a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me.
Come on.
For I delight in the law of God after the inward man, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind.
Look at that. I see something else in my members warring against what?
The law of my mind.
The law of what I know is right. The law in my mind. Read.
In bringing me into captivity to the law of sin.
And it brings you into captivity. Okay? Which means now you're subjected to this spirit. Because it doesn't just want you to make this one choice. It wants your whole vessel to direct that whole vessel to hell. It's not that one scenario it's after. Read.
Bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members.
Come on.
O wretched man that I am.
He said what?
O wretched man that I am.
And if anyone could have said that he was deep and on great levels when it comes to spirituality, it's Paul. And even in all his righteousness, in the height of his spirituality, he's at the behest of the church, at the people saying, well, listen, if I can humble myself and tell you I'm nothing but a wretched man, why can't you? I'm wretched. Because as long as I'm in that spirit of seeing what's wrong, I will never think too high of myself. Because pride coming before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. I don't care all the knowledge I've got bestowed. Listen, Paul knew that he was a prisoner to Christ to do this work. Not because he was deep in all these other things, because he persecuted the church. He did wrong. And he always reminded himself that that man that did wrong still exists. Come on.
O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death?
Come on.
I thank God for Yeshua, the anointed our Lord. So then, with the mind, I myself serve the law of God.
With my mind, I can serve the law of the Almighty. Read.
But with the flesh, the law of sin.
Because now I have the knowledge of the law of sin. And through the Spirit of Christ, can control my flesh. And that's a battle we all go through, because none of us can escape what? Our thoughts, our past. The things we love to do, even in the world, those thoughts are still there. So we have to learn, if we learn to overcome and win those battles and fight that spirit within ourselves, guess what? And that's me included, folks. If we can learn this, we'll have less time. There'll be less time with us fighting each other. Way less time. One thing else, and then we'll pray out. James 3. This is quick.
James chapter 3, verse 1.
First we went into the member, which is the body itself. Now we're going to end it with one of the more powerful members of our body. Let me get it here. One second here. There it is. James 3, Elder Lawyer, let's start at the first verse.
Yes, sir. The book of James chapter 3, verse 1. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in the many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body.
Come on.
Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body.
Check that out. You can take a strong horse. You know how muscular, you know how strong a horse is? If they kick you right, you out of here. They kick you right into the bosom of Abraham. Straight out, this is strong. So I'm going to tell you right now, you can take one bit and give it to that horse and move that powerful being any place you would like. Read.
Verse 4. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth.
Here it is, you got this big ship, and there's this little thing that goes like this in the back that steers this strong ship. Read.
Verse 5. Even so the tongue is a little member, it boasteth great things. Behold, how great is a matter a little fire kindleth.
A little fire kindleth. That means you ever see a fire, you start a fire, and you see the little sparks there? Now to you it's just little sparks. But then when you go away, you go up, a whole forest fire is going on. The Most High has given us, through the disciples, the wisdom of this powerful member called the tongue. Read.
Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth.
Come on.
And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity.
A world of sin.
So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on the fire of hell.
It is set on the fire of hell, the tongue. So dealing with that sin that's in our bodies, that thing that came, that will have us do the things that we would not. And we find ourselves fall into the same issue over and over again. Understand this, brothers and sisters. When you're feeling that in your quarters, in the midst of a confrontation, don't say anything. It's that. We talked about in the book of Enoch how those spirits, and they roam around because there's no place. They came from the Nephilim. They attack, do battle, do all these things, never rest, take no eat, take not eat. It's the attack of the specters and shittim, but they need a reaction to move. You say something, and it hits a person, and they're vulnerable, and the spirit goes into them. But what it's looking for is, you heard me say that she don't appreciate you. You don't do that. You always have to go through this. Da, 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 da. And then you say something, and it jumps down. You open, and it's in you now. Okay, this is going good. Okay, go upstairs. Get the knife. Get the knife now. Go ahead. This is going. That's how it works, folks. With that little bitty tongue. Little bitty. Now I'm gonna tell you, women are more sharper with it than men. Why? Because they don't have the physical force of a man. So they have to use that more so as their tool of or weapon of choice, not having the physicality. Not that men aren't exempt, but women don't got a recourse where if there's something and men go back and forth, we know, okay, we have to settle this with this. Women don't have that. So they have to use what they have. Sometimes. You have to watch it. Because how many times, I know how many times I done said something and said, Lord, I wish I could have took that back. Many times I've said, I'm like, oh, no, I hope I can wake up from this. And that it's out already. Finish reading.
Verse 7. For every kind of beast, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and have been tamed of mankind.
Read.
But the tongue can no man tame.
But the tongue can no man tame. Read.
It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison.
Full of deadly poison. You can say something, and it'll change the rest of your life. It can change the rest of your life. You can say something, and words can hurt more than a physical punch. Because it's how you think of it. It's how you feel about it. That's even deeper. Because I can get over my eye, I can put ice over it and go down. But words isn't going to stick in my mind for how long? Read.
But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison.
Come on.
Therewith bless we God.
Bless we AHAYAH.
Even the Father, and therewith curse we men.
We bless the Most High today and pray, and we curse men the same day with the same tongue. Read.
Which are made after the similitude of God.
Because we're doing this, and we're cursing people who are made after the image of God. How can you bless God? Oh, thank you, God. Bless you. Oh, AHAYAH, you my Savior. And then you go curse the image of God. Your own brother, your own sister. Read.
Verse 10. Out of the same mouth proceeded blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. Doeth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter?
Come on.
Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh.
Come on.
Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom.
His works with meekness of wisdom. Sometimes it's okay because, we get under each other's skin. Anything can happen. Arguments happen. Demons try to jump. But when you feel that thing, usually you feel it in your stomach and you know what it is. Just go, and I used to be good at it, but I have to be better at it. Go to the bathroom and pray. But if that thing is already stirred up, the other one is already like, no, you're not going nowhere. No. But it's already stirred up. Read.
Verse 14, but if ye have bitter envy and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth.
Lie not against the truth. If you are bitter from something that happened ever in your life, face it. Be honest about it. And know that that's that man working now. Whoever we're dealing with now didn't do that. We have to be honest with ourselves that we are lashing out at a person who don't deserve it. That's the self-reflection. We're lashing out. But this person loves us. He loves you. She loves you. But because the person who did something back then is not there, I'm the only one you can beat on or scream on. We have to be honest with ourselves and say, you know what? Let me go to that little boy, that little girl that didn't have no defense. And understand it's her fighting, it's him fighting. We have to stop fighting each other. The enemy's trying to kill us, the enemy's planning against us, and now the devil is working, trying to help destroy all those who, the only few people who understand what this is. Come on.
Verse 15, this wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish.
Devilish.
For where enmity and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work.
Confusion and every evil work. We'll find ourselves going around in circles and not realizing it's that little boy, it's that little girl who was hurt. And now he's putting on a posture of defense so that it won't happen again. But you're still that person's hurt. But then every time something happens, even though you're not thinking about it, your subconscious goes back there and you're now fighting. We're in fighting mode now. I'm big now. I'm strong now. I'm not. You ain't gonna get over on me like you. No, that was 15 years ago. I didn't know you then. That was 20 years ago. But you're acting like that. That's what we do. Read.
Verse 17, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality, and without hypocrisy.
Read.
And then the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace.
Now it's over. You went to the next progression in our spiritual journey when we all realize this. This is what Christ meant by if someone do something, turn the other cheek. He didn't say get slapped around. He was like, if that person is evil, why should you have a reaction and become that evil? So we have to overcome, all of us, even when someone do something wrong, whatever, and I'm going to practice this within myself regularly. Respond back with good. When you see something that's triggering you, come back with good. And say, normally I would have reacted differently. But may Christ bless you. May Christ bless you. I can't give this sin, any more fuel to destroy me any further. I'm a vessel of Christ. I belong to Christ. And when he returns, I want to be whole. With a clear conscience ready for this kingdom. So with that was the wisdom that comes with Purim. Enjoy.